pleasure to be here today, even virtually. My name is Artemis Papailia, and I am an adjunct lecturer of children's literature in Democritus University of Thrace, Greece. My title is Subverting Gender, Normativity in Children's Literature, a critical examination of diversity and fluidity. In contemporary society, the evolving understanding of gender identities and expressions stands as a testament to a deepening comprehension of what it means to be a human. This shift towards a more inclusive perspective on gender not only reshapes societal norms, but also influences significant cultural artifacts, prominently including children's literature. This genre plays a crucial role, serving both as a reflection of societal changes and as catalyst for fostering new understandings of identity. This scholarly investigation explores the transformative role that children's literature plays in subverting traditional male gender norms. By integrating characters and narratives that defy normative expectations, these stories provide young readers with a broader, more inclusive representation of gender diversity. The profound impact of this literature offers new ways for children to understand and express their own identities in a world that is increasingly rejecting binary constraints. So, the aim of this paper is to elucidate the mechanisms through which contemporary children's narratives, particularly those produced or translated in Greece within the last 2 years, challenge hegemonic gender constructs. In particular, you can see the title of the books that we are going to examine below. Through a critical analysis of both the textual and illustrative elements of these recent works, this study will uncover how these narratives serve as powerful vehicles for broader societal discussion on gender inclusivity. By doing so, it highlights the essential role that these recent publications play in cultivating a more expansive understanding of gender among children. By examining narrative strategies, character development, and illustrative techniques employed in these recent publications, this paper aims to demonstrate how children's literature actively contributes to the education and development of younger generations. I would like to start by positing a question. How does the ideological character of children's literature influence young readers' understanding and acceptance of non-traditional gender roles within their societal contexts? So, every attempt to answer the above question presupposes two fundamental assumptions. The first pertains to the ideological character of children's literature and more specifically to the significance of such character. If we accept that such literature is addressed to readers without sufficient reading experience and without a broader experience of the world, then we understand that the ways in which this literature presents the surrounding world are crucial for their socialization. Because through the dialectical relationship that develops each time with its reader, the literary text negotiates with them those ideological positions, among them those related to gender, which are necessary for their smooth integration into the society to which they belong. The second fundamental assumption concerns the relationship of the literary work with the era in which it is produced. Each society in each era, depending on its economic and social background, shapes and produces specific dominant ideologies. A significant place where we can locate these ideologies is the realm of children's literature. If we examine from the perspective of representations the norm of children's literature of each era, we will perceive that all those ideologies which that particular society wishes to transmit to its children at that time are inscribed there. However, we must not overlook the fact that the ideological structure of any given society is fortunately not monolithic. Alongside the dominant ideologies, as Raymond Williams showed us, there are residual ideologies which express ideological remnants of the past, as well as alternative or oppositional ideologies that express specific centrifugal tendencies of the present. Therefore, based on the two aforementioned assumptions, I believe that any attempt to analyze the gender related ideology of contemporary literary works addressed to children must start from a concise examination, like the present one, of the era we are going through concerning the ideological fermentations about gender. Over the past 2 years, Greece has experienced a notable shift in its sociopolitical and cultural landscape, fostering an environment increasingly open to discussing and challenging traditional male gender norms. A convergence of factors, including legislative changes, the visibility of social movements, and broader European influences, has led to heightened awareness about gender equality and the importance of inclusive representation in various spheres, especially, of course, in cities literature. One of the most prominent developments is the acceptance of marriage between two men, a milestone reflecting Greece's evolving perspective on what constitutes family and partnership. While civil unions for same sex couples were already in place, broader social and political recognition has strengthened the position of LGBTQ advocacy groups and paved the way for more progressive discussions in the public arena. This newfound acceptance has also opened doors for authors, educators, and publishers to explore family structures that challenge the traditional notion of fathers as solely authoritative or emotionally distant figures. Um, Moreover, educational reforms, alike with European directives, have provided an impetus for schools to adopt new learning materials that emphasize social justice and inclusivity. But despite these strides, resistance, of course, persists in more conservative circles. Um, so I think that as Greece continues to negotiate its identity in this new era, children's literature emerges as a critical mean for shaping perceptions of gender among the youngest members of society. Let's start our examination of the books. The first book has the title Butterfly Child by Mark Majewski. I think that it offers a visually and enhancing and thematically resonant experience for young readers, weaving together themes of creativity, self expression, and resilience, of course, in the face of bullying. The story centers on a tan skinned protagonist, short brown hair, and a lively spirit who crafts a pair of butterfly wings and antennae in order to pretend to fly. This imaginative act sets the stage for a gentle yet powerful tale about personal freedom, the pressures of conformity, and the sustaining role of family support. So the story opens with the young child who, in a moment of pure creativity, fashions a pair of large butterfly wings. This initial act of self transformation is very, very significant. The creation of wings, an image often associated with lightness, freedom, and ethereality, challenges the prevailing notion that boys or men should adhere to a narrow repertoire of stoicism, toughness, or physical dominance. Instead, the protagonist's project is an act of individual artistry that celebrates vulnerability and the joy of difference. As the narrative unfolds, the child ventures out in a lush, verdant landscape, thrilling and frolicking with joy. This portrayal is crucial again because the exuberance and spontaneity with which a child moves through the natural world, I think that it disrupts the stereotype that male behavior must be controlled. Um, the very act of the child underscores, I think, the idea that sensitivity and openness are equally valid expressions of strength. However, the protagonist's freedom is abruptly curtailed. When? When a group of male presenting bullies enters the scene. Their attempt to tear off the butterfly wings symbolizes the societal impulse to enforce conformity by policing deviations from the norm. The bully's actions are emblematic of the forces that seek to suppress non traditional expressions of masculinity. Their derision is not about the physical object, the wings, but what it represents, a challenge to the rigid, often oppressive parameters that define acceptable male behavior. Frustrated and hurted by bullies, the protagonist retreats home and sulks in a bed, a moment that lays bare the emotional impact of societal rejection. The child's father then enters the scene, offers comfort and solidarity. He brings him food. He says nothing. So rather than merely providing paternal consolation in a conventional, detached manner, the father actively engages in the process of repair. Together, they mend and recreate the butterfly costume, symbolizing not only the restoration of the child's self, but also the reinforcement of an alternative vision of masculinity. So, the father's role in the narrative is especially noteworthy in the context of subverting gender normativity. Traditional depictions of fatherhood in Chinese literature often cast male figures as authoritative and emotionally distant. Here, however, the father's gentle reassurance and hands on involvement in the creative process serve as a powerful counterpoint to these stereotypes. His support validates the child's unique identity and models a form of masculinity that embraces care and empathy. The narrative resolution reinforces the transformative vision. With the butterfly costume restored, the protagonist returns to the public sphere, dancing freely. The act of dancing symbolizes an unequal reclaiming of one's identity. It is a statement that the child, and by extension the young reader, is free to beat his own or her own drum without succumbing to external pressures to conform. In a climactic moment of empowerment, the protagonist's joyous movement in the open not only defies the bullies, but also offers a template for embracing difference and celebrating non-traditional expressions of gender. Moreover, I would like to say that while the bullies in the story are portrayed as male presenting and adhere to the traditional forms of aggression, the solitary female presenting child is the only one who offers acceptance and provides a nuanced commentary on gender dynamics. So, although her role is not central, her presence underscores the idea that acceptance and empathy transcend gender boundaries. The second book is called Two Small Knights, uh, Tusma Ridere. It is a daring and innovative addition to contemporary citizens literature, a tale that challenges ideals of masculinity by reimagining what it means to be a knight. Traditionally, the archetype of the knight has been synonymous with hyper-masculinity, combating and driven by the pursuit of honor through physical conquest. However, in this story, the knights are indeed two small knights. So the story opens with a dramatic twist. The princess has vanished, and the king is convinced that the dragon has abducted her. By chance, the task of rescuing the princess falls to two small knights. However, these knights are nothing but the archetypal Spartan hardened heroes. For instance, one of the knights, Triadaphilos, seems more preoccupied with trivial matters, deciding which boots to wear, leopard prints, stiletto-like, or sandals, than with the noble pursuit of rescue. When the king comes looking for his knights, he finds only these two because the other have gone off to complete a tournament. As fate will have it, the duty to rescue the princess falls on their shoulders. In an early subversion of expectation, Triadaphilos dons his leopard print boots to search the forest, a visual and symbolic choice that defies the stereotypical image of a knight in a somber, unadorned armor. Their quest leads them through a series of eccentric and humor encounters. After a fruitless search, they eventually find the princess in a most unexpected setting, and dismal hideout reminiscent of a scruffy den inhabited by rural miscreants. Here the princess has radically transformed her appearance. She has painted her face green, wears a stark black and white dress, and sports a necklace adorned with spikes. Far from the delicate, demure figure of fairy tales, she presents as a fierce, unconventional character who rejects the confines of traditional femininity. Unsurprisingly, she refuses to follow the knights back to the palace. At this point, the narrative shifts to a dialogue that encapsulates, I think, the book's subversive spirit. The dialogue unfolds as follows. To tell you the truth, I'm not really interested in princesses, says Knight Boom. Really? asks Triadaphilos. No, replies Boom. Only princesses or girls in general? Triadaphilos inquires. Girls in general, says Boom. Not even me, says Triadaphilos. This conversation is a deliberate tongue-in-cheek interrogation of conventional male desire. Rather than automatically gravitating toward the princess, Boom's dismissal of princesses, clarified further to include girls in general, challenges the assumption that knights, and by extension male figures, are inherently drawn to feminine forms. Triadaphilos' interjection, not even me, adds another layer suggesting there is room to question, resist, and redefine what counts as attraction or interest. Beyond the dialogue, the overall structure of Two Small Knights appends the conventional knightly quest. Instead of embarking on an epic battle against a formidable dragon, the knights eventually confront a twist. The dragon turns out to be a female dragon. This is not the monstrous, evil character of the legend. Rather, she is a friend to the princess, who is defending her because of their friendships and a sense of loyalty to animals. This reversal, this reversal calls into question the binary opposition that have long defined heroic narratives: good versus evil, masculine strength versus feminine fragility. During the journey, the knights also stumble upon a wardrobe designed for artists inside a cave, a scene where Triadaphilos is momentarily distracted by the allure of makeup, mascara, lip gloss, glitter that he yearns to try. Though time does not permit, this moment of levity further undermines the structures of traditionally masculinity. As the narrative reaches its climax, the princess, having experienced her own transformation and asserting her autonomy, is finally persuaded to return to the palace, not as a passive object of rescue, but as an individual who negotiates her own conditions. She agrees to return on the understanding that she will not be continuously patronized by the knights. Instead, she will visit the dragon every Wednesday, changing her clothes to maintain, of course, an image of toughness. In a final twist that mirrors the earlier dialogue, the book closes with Triandafylos pondering over his new golden heels and debating whether to wear them at the Christmas ball or the king's birthday. This ending, full of ambiguity and playful self reflection, reinforces the idea that identity and personal style are matters of individual choice rather than predetermined by societal norms. Our last book is a Greek one. The previous one were translated in Greece. Um, the title is Prince Cedars. It was published just 3 months ago by Nasta and Vasilis Koutsougiannis and emerges as a bold reimagining of the Cinderella's tale, a revision that aligns itself with contemporary feminist debates and LGBTQ+ perspectives on fairy tales. Drawing on the tradition of Barbara Scoll's upside down fairy tales, she has also written and illustrated Prince Cinders herself. The classic narrative is transformed into a vibrant commentary on gender and sexual identity. As Zach Zipes notes, the purpose of a revised fairy tale is to create something new that reflects the critical and creative thinking of its producer while challenging traditional patterns and codes. At the heart of Prince Cinders, its protagonist, an unconventional version of Cinderella, known as Cinders, or in Greece, Stachtoputis, from Stachtopouta. Unlike the traditional passive, mistreated maiden, Cinders is portrayed as a boy who stands apart from his peers. He is characterized by his eccentric style, sporting green dyed hair and an orthodox way of dressing that immediately sets him apart in a society where norms dictate proper behavior and appearance. His parents, rather than offering unconditional support, are depicted as highly critical figures. Excuse me. They hurl these parading remarks such as, "How do you walk like that?" or "What is that you're wearing?" even as they lavish affection on his sister, who conforms more closely to conventional expectations. This familiar dynamic lays bare the painful consequences of rigid gender expectations, as Cinders is left to internalize its judgments while nurturing a simple yet persistent wish. Every night before going to sleep, he prays to be loved for who he truly is. The narrative takes a classic fairy tale turn when the king organizes a ball, sending out invitations to everyone, even Cinders. However, his parents forbid him from attending, insisting that he remains at home to throw wood on the fire to keep the house warm. A magical intervention occurs when a fairy appears. With her magic wand, she attempts to find him a suitable outfit for the ball. In a striking twist, the fairy deems that the best attire for Cinders is the one he already wears, his own unique self. In an unexpected move, too, here, I talked about that. Okay, so in an unexpected move, she turns a magical pumpkin from the traditional fairy tale into roller skates. A metaphor maybe for rolling away from all constraints, and it's also very humorous. So when Cedars enters the ballroom, the space is already filled with revelers. The prince, a central figure in this revised narrative, soon asks him to dance. In a moment reminiscent of the striking clock in traditional fairy tales, the magic of the evening abruptly ends at midnight. The urgency of departure parallels the transitory nature of magical transformation, yet it also underscores the fleeting opportunities that non-conforming individuals may have to assert their identity in a world not yet fully ready to embrace change. The prince, however, does not abandon Sanders. He accompanies him home and makes a heartfelt promise. He vows to support Sanders even if his own family disapproves. Excuse me, and declares his desire to be with him. So, the following morning, in a decisive break from convention, the prince and Cinder set off together to start a new life. I would like to conclude now. First of all, I would like to support that in the books above, one can discern signs of ideological shifts, especially in the literary portrayals of masculinity. Traditionally, literary representation of masculinity have depicted it as singular, as a fixed category. So, in contrast, I think that contemporary portrayals present masculinity as diverse and ever evolving, much like femininity. This raises a key question: what do these understated ideological shifts signify? Can we claim that modern boys have changed and, consequently, the ways in which they are represented in literature are also transforming? This perspective challenges the outdated notion that literature merely mirrors its social surroundings. So today we recognize that literature for children, through its creators, not only reflects but also refracts and represents the social reality in which it is produced. The literary depictions of gender do not simply reproduce social facts, rather, they reveal how specific authors and illustrators, of course, in their unique temporal and spatial context, interpret that reality. Because the heroes, and of course heroines, in contemporary children's literature do not necessarily represent um, the actual experience of child readers. So the adult writer conveys most faithfully their own imaginative ideal or aspiration for today's children. Such creative fantasies and desires are indicative of the spirit of the times, revealing how we, as adults writing for children, perceive gender difference and perhaps even how we ourselves experience our gender identities. In my view, this is a symptom of an optimistic change, one that transcends the confines of literature and permits society at large. Thank you very much for your attention and for your listening. Bye.